Yes.
Welcome, everybody. We really appreciate everybody's attending tonight. I just want to note that we have 4 in-person locations taking part in this session tonight. In person here in Napanee in our county courthouse, in the township offices in Addington, Highlands, Stone Mills, and Loyalist. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you to the staff in our 3 townships that are helping us out both technically and with their staffing tonight to help make this happen. And we thought it was really important to offer 4 in-person locations because we're really mindful of the fact that a lot of the residents don't have the same internet capabilities as others. And we wanted to have equal opportunity for all of our residents to participate and ask questions. So that's why we chose this format. And of course, folks can watch at home on the internet as well. So that's why we've chosen it. So thank you to our staff and the township offices. The reason we wanted to do this session is because our new county council is planning to do strategic planning on May 10th. And we wanted to make sure that our residents have a sound understanding of all the different services that the county provides. So that if you want to provide input to your county councilors prior to strategic planning, you have a good foundation for which to give your ideas. So you might hear some things tonight that pique your interest to say, yeah, that would be a priority for me, and want to communicate that to your counselor. But if we don't share with you all the things we do, you might not know which ones that you feel are important. So we wanted to give you a full breadth of that information to help you give input to your counselors. So let's advance the screen, and it's not advancing. Jason, I need technical help already. If anything, you're going to do it. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the county structure and how we're different from your township operations. And then each of our directors that have outward-facing services are going to come up and give you an overview of the services they provide, some challenges, and some opportunities to think of for future, just to give you that foundation. And then at the end, I'm going to open up to questions, and I'll rotate between the different, the 4 different sites that we have people participating. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I just wanted to point out to you that counties in Ontario deliver provincially mandated services. So for example, we deliver long-term care, paramedics, social services, and that includes childcare, housing, and Ontario Works. We also do provincial offenses like speeding fines and court proceedings and that sort of thing. So that's obviously different than lower tiers. We also do some regional services like regional roads and bridges, regional economic development, library services. So again, different than lower tier. It's important for us to point out for you the provincially mandated services, because the province does pay for us to deliver those services, but they also control certain aspects of those services. And so I'll give you an example. So for long-term care, you might say, there's a huge waiting list for long-term care. We should have more beds at John and Garrett Center. We don't control the number of beds in long-term care, the province controls that. So you'll find that the directors, when they go through the slides for the provincially mandated services, will delineate for you what's within our control and what's within the province's control. So that's helpful to know when you're doing what you can change and what you can't change. And just to give you a sense of the difference between the township and the county, you can see from the upper tier municipality county side, it is these provincially mandated services and some of the regional services. That's very different than the lower tier. Our county council is made up of 8 members from our 4 townships. We have the mayor and the reeve from each township and the deputy from each township that sit on our county council. It's important to know that our county councilors change hats when they come to county council. They're not there to represent their township. They're there to represent all of the residents within the county. They swear in office and are remunerated from the county, and they sit there as county representatives, not as the representative from the lower tier. So, for example, our county is quite long and narrow. They are responsible for the delivery of county services from Amherst Island to Denby and all points in between. So that is a big responsibility. Just wanted to share with you the different departments that make up our county. So the administration includes the CAO, the clerk, and IT. And then there's financial services, human resources, social services, infrastructure, which includes roads, bridges, and property services. And they maintain over 400 social housing properties. Community and development services, which is economic development, planning, museum, library, long-term care, and emergency services. So the process for tonight, again, there are the 4 sites. So after all of the directors have presented, I'm going to ask if there's any questions here in this room, and then in Loyalist, in Stone Mills, and in Addington Highlands, and I'll take one person each time and go around until there's no more questions or comments. We would just ask, if possible, if you could limit your statement or your question to a 2-minute time frame to make sure that we get everybody. But if we have time at the end and somebody wants to have a longer statement or comment, we'll certainly do for that. I just want to make sure that we end up with enough time for everybody to express themselves if we can. Now I'm going to invite Angela Malcolm, who's our Director of Long-Term Care, the Administrator of the Children's Care Center.
Thank you. So I get to start off the session, and I'm very happy to share with you a little bit about the Children's Care Center. So this home opened in November 2005, so we are approaching 18 years of age. There are 167 residents who live there, and then we also have 1 respite bed. So a respite bed can be booked for a period of 2 days up to however long somebody might want to stay there. There's 6 resident home areas. One of those 6 is a specialized unit, which is for people who potentially may elope and would be unsafe if they were to do that. Sometimes they also have significant behaviors, and that's the home area that they would stay in. In those home areas, you could close the doors to each of those 6 spaces, and it would be its own small little nursing home unto its own. So it would have its own dining room, its own spa room, medication room, that kind of thing. So it'd be like 6 little nursing homes in there. We were awarded a 3-year accreditation in January through CARF accreditation. So that means that if you are an accredited home, that you have went above and beyond what the ministry standards are in a number of areas. And so that's it's a sign that that home is doing really high quality work and exceeding the base requirements that any long-term care would have to reach. The rates for a long-term care home are set by the ministry. They were held over through the pandemic at a locked state for 2 years. They did just set a new rent rate, and that commenced October 1st, 2022. So whether you're in a privately run long-term care home, or you're in a municipal home, or a not-for-profit long-term care home, the rates are the same. So if it's an older building, like an older long-term care home or a newer long-term care home, the rates are exactly the same, all set by the ministry. So this slide is to show you the differences that you will see, because we often get confused with long-term care homes with retirement homes. Retirement homes are a completely different entity from municipal, not-for-profit, and private sector long-term care homes. You can see here in this chart that, as I just said, the rent rates for long-term care homes are set by the province. However, in a retirement home, they set their own individual rates, and one retirement home could be completely different to another retirement home. The funding for long-term care homes is a per diem that is set by the province, and it's based on the levels of care that are occurring in that long-term care home for the previous year. And so this changes year to year, and it does contribute to a very challenging budget process, because you have to wait for the CMI to come in. For a retirement home, the funding they have no ministry funding, and it is based on a per service payment by the tenant that lives in there. For staffing in the long-term care home, there are a number of minimum expectations that each home must meet. For instance, we are required to have 24/7 RN coverage in the building. We are all working towards 4 hours of care in our nursing department, which includes the PSW staff, the RPN staff, and the RN staff. We also have specific requirements for our infection control lead of the home. This is a new position that has been born out of COVID. And so this position is for the Parrott Center requires 26.5 hours per pay period for us to, per week for us to mandate, for them to mandate for us. And as well, we have minimum requirements around the dietitian that comes to our home, cooks. My position requires a full-time position. The manager of nursery is required to be full-time. In retirement homes, there are no minimum standards. There is also no minimum requirements from one department to another. They can staff it as they choose. The regulatory authorities that govern the long-term care homes are the Fixing Long-Term Care Homes Act, the Resident Bill of Rights, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Long-Term Care, Ministry of Labor, and then KLA for us, KLA Public Health. And then for retirement homes, there is the Retirement Homes Regulatory Authority, and then they also have resident rights, and they do function under the public health. This is the same as us as well as the Ministry of Labor. So there's a number of things that impact the way homes are laid out, the way homes have to staff their buildings, the way homes have to provide equipment to the home. So for our building, it's a newer style building, which means that we have home areas where there's a maximum of 32 residents that live in each home area. In an older style building, they might have one very large dining room and everybody congregates into the one dining room. At the Parrott Center, we have 6 dining rooms because we're a newer style home. So with the newer style homes, you require a different staffing formula than you would if you were, one hall this way and one hall that way and all the residents there. We have 2 hallways and 6 home areas. So there's 12 hallways that we would have to staff for. And then this also impacts how we have to purchase mechanical lifts, the number of tubs that we require, the number of dining room commodities that we require. So there's a lot of difference between a new build and an older style of home. We actually have a building condition assessment that we do that is done for the county buildings, and based on that, we consider life expectancy of our equipment, and we look at the net kinds of replacements that we have to do on our various pieces of equipment, and that is how one of the ways that we determine our capital planning for the coming future years. And then the other thing that is different from one long-term care home to another is the rate in which we pay our staff, the benefits that we provide our staff, those kinds of things. The per diems that are set by the province, I've laid them out. They actually just came out on April 1st, 2023 with increases. So the nursing and personal care envelope, this is something that all homes receive slightly different funding based on our case mix index, which is the CMI. That's how we fund our nursing envelope. The program and support is again how we would provide funding for activities, programs that we deliver as far as physio, social services, those kinds of things. The nutritional support just received a significant bump, which is very, very helpful because of the rising cost of food that we're all experiencing. So this went up by 9.7% by the province. So we now receive $11 per day per resident in order to feed each resident. So with that $11, we are mandated to provide 3 meals per day with 2 options, an option A for a lunch and option B for lunch. The residents can choose from that. They also have 2 additional beverage options and throughout the day, and then 3 additional snacks. So it's not a lot of money when you consider all of those things that you also have to provide. So then I'll go on to what we have some ability to control versus what we cannot control. So the type of nursing staff that we hire, we can decide how we want to shake out whether we want an increase of RPNs versus RNs, whether we want a higher number of PSWs. However, at the end of the day, our target is that we're working towards 4 hours of care per resident per day. Keep in mind, we do have to have 24/7 RN coverage in the building. We also have the ability to control the allied health services that we have coming into the building, so that could include social work, it could include music therapy, could be spiritual support, could be speech language, occupational therapy. But we are all working towards 36 minutes per resident per month for that, and that's again a mandated provision as far as the allotment of hours. The size of rooms, there is a minimum standard as to size of rooms, and so a home, if they were building a new home, they could decide to have a bigger room for each resident, or just keep it to the minimum. It's entirely up to them. The brand of product and equipment that we utilize, so we can purchase a specific kind of mechanical lift. Each one can choose to do whatever they wish to do in terms of that. We can choose what kind of content products we want to purchase, what kind of programs we want to run. That's entirely up to the home. We do have a limited ability as to refusing an admission into the home, so we have 2 options. A resident can, or a person in the community can apply to be a resident at our home, and if we don't have the physical space, so that could be something like for the care center it wouldn't work, but if we couldn't fit their wheelchair through our doors, that would not be applicable to the care center because we can. So that would be one place where we wouldn't be able to provide, or we could refuse admission. And the other option is if we don't have the actual training or equipment that would be required to care for that person. So those are the only 2 reasons that we can ever refuse entry into the care center. The last thing that we have some ability to control is our menu. However, there is significant conditions around the menu, so we can't serve a green vegetable 2 days in a row. We have to make sure that we have a certain fiber content. We have to have a certain amount of carbs in the menu. There's a lot of restrictions. However, if our residents decide that they want to have green peas and green broccoli the next day, then they could dictate that by their residents' council, so they absolutely have a voice then, but we just have to go to the residents and ask them. What we can't control is, as Brenda said, we can't control the number of beds. We cannot control the eligibility for those coming onto our wait list. That is done by this Southeast Home and Community Care. We also can't control our wait list. We have 0 control over who sits on our wait list. We don't have any control over moving somebody up our wait list or down on our wait list. That is something entirely separate from every long-term care home. The minimum staffing hours that are expected, and I referenced them earlier, there's no adjustment on that. We have to meet those. The services that we provide, so we are mandated to provide pharmacy services. So we have a contracted pharmacy that comes to the home and provides all of the medication for the home. We cannot have 2 pharmacies. We can't have people bringing in their own medications because that would be against the regulations and the act. We are required to provide physiotherapy services. We could choose which company we want to go to, but we have to provide these services. The minimum temperature within the building has to be at least 22 degrees. There's no option for that. If a resident wanted it cooler, they would have to make that known to us, and then we can control that individual room, but we can't change the building temperature. We have minimum annual training requirements for all of the staff. It's a very long list of training that we are required to provide to all of them. And then we have minimum standards and programs that are set up by the ministry to ensure that we're meeting things such as appropriate palliative care, appropriate pain management, appropriate fall management, appropriate incontinence management, those kinds of things. And then we also certainly cannot control the provincial funding, nor can we control when they let us know when that provincial funding is coming. The 4 hours of care, these are ministry set targets. So these are targets that the ministry has set for all homes to try to reach. You need to keep in mind that Health Human Resources is incredibly challenging right now. And so these targets would be wonderful to be able to reach, but trying to get staff to come to the building, to come to work. And be interested in healthcare in general and across the country is very difficult. You will see here that by March of 2022, we were to reach 3 hours of care, which the Parrott Centre did do that. By March of this year, we had to reach 3 hours and 15 minutes of care, which we are just slightly above. And then you can see through this chart at 3 hours and 42 minutes must be reached by March of next year. And then by March of 2025, we should be at 4 hours of care. I will say though that there needs to be significant push as far as the colleges are concerned to even find us people that are capable and able to take on these roles with their school. We have been very progressive and very much on top of our capital improvements at the Parrott Centre. Hopefully you've been into the Parrott Centre and can attest to some of the things that you see there. We have replaced all of the tubs in the Parrott Centre, all of the beds and mattresses. This has been the Parrott Centre opened, so in 2005. All of these things have been replaced. The flooring, some of the flooring, some of the carpets, almost all of the bathroom fixtures. Our entire call bell system has been replaced. Our building automation system, 3/4 of our roof, almost all of the fencing. We are moving towards LED lighting to be more cost efficient, and all of our dining room furniture has also been replaced. So it's important that we want our residents to ensure that they feel comfortable in their home and that they feel very proud of their home that they live in. And so I feel that all of these improvements that we have made very proactively speak to that, the level of responsibility that the county feels towards that. The other enhancements that are unique to the Parrott Centre are that we have a GIS program that honestly saved us tremendously during the pandemic. As you were coming into the home, that was how we tracked all of the essential caregivers, how we tracked all the general visitors, to ensure that we had everybody with full vaccination, that they were answering the screening questions, and we were able to respond very quickly if we were to go into outbreak, because we could go back very quickly to see who had been in the home in the last whatever 5 days and be able to reach out to them and let them know that they needed to monitor themselves or be mindful. And so it was very helpful. This GIS program also provides the people that are perhaps living out of town with an idea of what the home looks like and what the physical layout and the sizing of the home. We have a wonderful outdoor area, and we regularly communicate with our families via newsletter to keep them informed as to the various things that are happening in home. On the horizon for GMPC is that we are recruiting for a nurse practitioner, which is very exciting. Also very challenging because there's not a lot of nurse practitioners out there. We are doing some leadership training for our registered staff. and trying to be creative with staffing strategies to support the home. And then, as a result of going through the pandemic, we are doing some mental health training enhancements for all of GNBC staff to ensure that they feel supported within the care center and within their employment in general. Some areas of opportunity are that we are consistently trying to collaborate with local colleges to recruit and attract people to come and either do their placement at the Paris Center or come and their entire class come and do their clinical placements. And then we're also building partnerships with the Supervised Practice Experience Partnership Program to recruit internationally trained registered staff to the home. And then we are also participating in job fairs. And that's all I have. So I am introducing Lynn Tenier, who is the Director of Social Services.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm the Director of the Prince Edward Lennox Managed and Social Services. So just for a bit of background, in 1998, the province directed social services departments that they had to serve a minimum population of 3,000. So Prince Edward County and Lennox Managed County were both below that. So we created a partnership and we deliver services in both service areas. And that was done in June of 1998. The governance for Prince Edward Lennox Managed and Social Services is by committee. There are 3 councillors from Lennox and Addington County on the committee and 3 councillors from Prince Edward County. The chair and the vice chair are elected by members of the Pell's committee, and that rotates back and forth each year. So 1 year it's the chair would be from Lennox and Addington, and the vice chair would be from Prince Edward. The next year that would rotate. So we share costs between the 2 counties using a formula that takes into consideration the weighted assessment, social housing units, social assistance caseload in each of the counties. And for 2023, the cost share is 63.91% for Lennox and Addington and 36.09% for Prince Edward County. So we offer a variety of programs through social services. We provide social assistance, children's services, and housing services. And I'll go into each one in a little bit more detail. So for social assistance, we offer or provide Ontario Works in both counties. That is financial and employment assistance for low-income individuals and families within the service area. And we also provide stability support. So connecting our clients up to programs and services that they need to be stable and to move through the system. We also offer the homelessness prevention program, which includes rent and utility arrears payments to help people stay housed, last month's rent to help secure housing, emergency shelter solutions for individuals that are homeless, as well as transitional housing and rent supplement programs. We offer temporary care assistance, which is for children who are not living with their parents. It's usually with a family member. So there's a minimal stipend that we're able to assist them with, as well as drug card benefits. And then there's emergency assistance, which is a one-time payment if there's been an emergency in the family. Ukrainian refugees also fall under that through the emergency assistance program as well. Under children's services, we manage the child care fee subsidy program. So for low-income families who can't afford to pay full child care costs, we are able to subsidize their child care fees. We also support operators and the system through the Canada-wide Early Learning and Child Care Program, which was introduced in 2022. Special needs resourcing funding for support for centers, capacity building within the sector, workforce development. As Angela mentioned, we also have a huge workforce problem in that we can't recruit enough ECs in the operator. So we are working on workforce development to improve that situation. Recently, the ministry has announced expansion planning, which takes into account a number of factors in terms of prioritizing neighborhoods and areas for vulnerable populations. We also support operators to ensure that operators are stable and funded and they're going to continue to exist moving forward. And then we also support the early on programming as well. So under housing services, there's quite a number of programs as well. So we manage the right here to income housing. That includes the local housing corporation. We support nonprofit housing providers who are providing right here to income housing. Rent supplement programs for people who are living with private landlords who can't afford full rent, so we pay a supplement in order to keep them housed. And then we also manage the centralized wait list for all of the right here to income units within the county and Prince Edward. Affordable housing options are offered whenever there's funding available, so those include home ownership programs, affordable housing builds, and private-public partnerships. And then we offer a homelessness program, so there's been a lot of community partner support in terms of funding to keep community agencies able to continue to assist homeless individuals within the counties. Transitional housing, so we're providing supports for people who've been homeless, who have now moved into a transitional housing unit, and we're helping to keep those people stabilized and move through the housing continuum. And then also emergency shelter solutions, which includes warming centers, motel stays, and those kinds of things. So under housing services, we administer a total of 300 right here to income housing units within Lennox County only. We support 3 nonprofit housing providers, and they offer 104 rent here to income units within the county. And there's currently a total of 938 households on the waiting list. And the chart, it may be a little difficult for you to read, so my apologies for that. It's broken down by municipalities in the county. So Greater Napanee has 247 rent here to income units as part of the local housing corporation. There are 40 nonprofit rent here to income units, and there are 106 rent supplements. And currently there's 682 people on the wait list for Greater Napanee. Loyalist Township, there are no rent here to income units, but owned by the local housing corporation. There's 48 nonprofit rent here to income units. There are 14 rent supplements, and there are 173 people on the wait list for Loyalist Township. Township of Stone Mills has 27 rent here to income units owned by the local housing corporation. There are no nonprofit housing providers in the Township of Stone Mills. We have 2 rent supplement programs in Stone Mills, and there are currently 111 people on the wait list for Stone Mills Township. And for the Township of Addington Highlands, there are 25 rent here to income units owned by the local housing corporation. There are 16 rent here to income units owned by nonprofits. There's 1 rent supplement, and there's 77 people on the wait list for Addington Highlands. So areas of opportunity. We want to ensure that Pella staff are well positioned to adopt the employment services transformation, which has been mandated by the province. So that is a change where currently Pella delivers employment supports to people that are in receipt of Ontario Works Assistance. As of October this year, we will no longer be delivering employment supports. However, we will be providing stability supports. And the new service system manager will be working with the Employment Ontario offices to deliver employment supports to our Ontario Works clients. So that is going to be a shift for us this year, a bit of learning curve. Childcare expansion planning is a big opportunity as childcare is becoming more affordable through the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system. Demand is expected to exceed space, obviously. So with that investment and supporting the growth strategy, we're never going to be able to meet those targets. So we're working on it, how to expand the number of spaces within the area. Recruitment and retention, as I mentioned earlier, of childcare workers is one of the biggest barriers. So as an example, a center might be licensed for 75 childcare spaces, but they're only operating 50 because they don't have enough staff to operate the other 25. So those are some of the barriers that we're dealing with in the childcare sector. On the housing side of things, an area of opportunity would be to develop an action plan to support the broader community's response to homelessness. And we've been working with community partners within the service area and are also looking at a homelessness action plan. currently, and we interviewed community agencies, people with lived experience to try and gather some of that information as to what are the gaps and what are the holes within our service area. Another area of opportunity, as funding will allow us to increase the number of affordable housing units by identifying municipally owned land, incentivizing developers, and identifying shovel-ready projects. So generally, when there's funding opportunities that come along, there's a very short application window. So having all that pre-work done ahead of time can really be a time savings in order to take advantage of some of those operating, funding opportunities. And I'd like to introduce Joanne Henry, our Chief of Relations.
Thank you for spending some time with us this evening to share the information that we put together. Here I provided a short list of some of the responsibilities shared by the province and the county, or that the province and the county are responsible for. So the responsibility for the province and the county falls under the Ambulance Act, and it's the province's responsibility to ensure a balanced system of ambulance services and dispatch centers throughout Ontario. They're responsible for standards, regulations, and paramedic credentials, and the county responsibilities are for current and future development and delivery options to ensure we are meeting compliance. And they're also responsible for collective bargaining and of the paramedic collective agreement with us, and it's currently being negotiated. So what's important to note on this slide is that the province and the county are both responsible for 50% of the cost of the ambulance delivery. Those costs are covered by the county until they receive the provincial grant funding. And the county has the responsibility of administering those funds for the proper provision of land ambulance services in the municipality, in accordance with the needs of persons in the municipality. The 50% provincial grant calculation is based on the previous year's council's approved budget. So some of our responsibilities are land ambulance service, the 911 side, our community paramedic program, and emergency management. So specific to the emergency services responsibilities, when someone calls 911, it requires an ambulance, we're paged out, they give us some relevant information, and we respond to that call. 911 responsibilities are not always lights and sirens. Some are transfers between healthcare facilities or non-emergency events. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about the CP program and emergency management in just a second. So what this graph shows you is our call volume from 2002. Currently, the highest call volume areas are Napanee, Loyalist, and Stone Mills is really catching up there to the rest of them. Prior to the pandemic, a normal increase in call volume for each year would be between 2 and 3%. Healthcare has changed drastically, and we've seen a slight decrease in calls during the lockdown, but once everybody started to leave their houses again, the call volume increased and continues to increase, as I'm sure you're all aware. So these are our current service levels. So currently we have 2 ambulances in Napanee, one's 24/7 and the other one's 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. All our other bases have 1 ambulance 24/7, with the exception of our Denby location, and it has 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sorry, what I wanted to share with you here too, so we currently have 48 part-time paramedics, we have 24 full-time paramedics, and we have a complement of 7 community paramedics. So I won't stay on this slide very long because it comes with money, and nobody wants to talk about money right now. But for example, with our Denby base being just a 12 hours per day and 7 days per week, to increase that to a 24/7 coverage would mean 4 more paramedics. At each paramedic works 84 hours bi-weekly, And then that would cost $616,000 to increase Denby to a 24/7 coverage. So you'll see a little bit more discussion about the hospital offload delay. This is one of our biggest problems, the hospital offload delay, which we have no control over. I'm sure you've heard it in the news and what's happening. It was a huge problem prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic has just accentuated the problem. Staffing issues, not enough coverage for beds, hiring, it's the same. I see a common theme from all of us, is retention, getting those employees. And then they've asked us to work and fill the gaps. So help out in the hospitals, do remote vaccinations, help with the homebound clinics and such. So they're asking for more from us with less people, so it's getting more difficult. Okay, so to combat some of those, this is our CP programs, combat some of those non-emergency events, we were very successful with some funding in 2021. And it was late 2021, so our program got kind of off the ground in 2022. So it's provided opportunities for clients ready or maybe possibly moving into long-term care home that can remain at home for a longer period, for palliative care patients that don't want to go into a healthcare facility and want to stay at home. We've provided that support to them as well. The province has looked at paramedics for assistance during the pandemic again. And this is where we pulled from there, but we pulled it from our 911 complement, which shortens our 911 side, right? So we just got to build it up a little bit more, but really great news in a new provincial funding budget that was just announced. Currently, our funding only went to March of 2024. It's now increased to 2025, and we're hoping that that's a little band-aid to help them get some permanent funding to us. Keep our fingers crossed for that. And then, of course, our other responsibility is emergency management. And the whole reason that this is so important to the county is that it makes our community less vulnerable and better able to respond to large emergencies. The outcome of emergency management is to prevent disasters, and where that's not possible, to reduce the harmful impacts. And this is just a quick snapshot of our paramedic stations. So we have 4 stations that we currently own, and Loyalist is on our strategic plan to build for 2024. So we are currently working on looking for some land in that area, and we have to do a lot of research to make sure that where we put that station, we're not increasing our call or our time to get to those calls. So we're doing that research now. And it was discussed in the past, and we did have it on in previous years, but then the EMS modernization came to the table, and then the pandemic hit as well, so kind of put that on hold. And then here's our areas of opportunity. So of course, high priority will be our new Loyalist station. So we're looking for that now, and then building on that property as well. So that's good for the community, for the county. Again, like we discussed already, our offload delays, which are causing just that, where our ambulance calls used to be like an hour, now they can reach 3-4 hours at a time, right? Paramedic recruitment, nothing different than anybody else. We have come up with plan B, C, D, and D. Like we have actually come up with hiring some of our paramedic students that come for preceptorship with us. We figure it's a 4-month interview. So we figure maybe again, students on board before they go and apply to the services will help us out. Our first response agreement with the fire department, we're currently working on a way to reduce the amount of calls that the fire departments go to that they're not required for. So we've had a preliminary meeting and look forward to feedback once they've had an opportunity to review with the lower tiers and come up with some suggestions for an updated agreement. And then lastly, just to build on that community paramedic program, it's keeping people out of the hospital, keeping them out of emergency departments, right? Dealing with their comorbidities at home and making sure they're taking their medications and preventing that illness that's going to be detrimental to them in hospitals. And we want to increase the capacity as well to ensure that everyone in our community that needs the care gets it and can receive it. And on that note, that concludes my presentation. And I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Chris Wager, who is the Director of Infrastructure Services.
Thanks, Joanne. As Director of Infrastructure Services, I'm responsible for roads and bridges as well as property services, the two departments. Roads and Bridges has 458 kilometers of road, including 68 structures. And Property Services has, what is down there, sorry. Property Services has 15 properties, including 422 social housing units. The goal of Roads and Bridges is to provide safe and efficient way of travel from community to community or town to town for our residents and goods and services. Staff evaluate and maintain issues related to the capital projects here in the county, but we don't do our own maintenance. The maintenance is actually provided by the lower tier municipalities such as the town of Napanee, Loyalist Township, Stone Mills, and Acton Highlands, and we pay their staff to provide the services on our roads such as cold patching, winter maintenance, summer maintenance, grass cutting, sweeping, ditch cleanouts, tree removals, all the stuff that needs to be done on an annual basis. Now, what staff do here at the county for the capital works, it's all managing the construction projects such as the reconstruction of Dundas Street, our hot mix paving programs, our surface treatment programs, maintaining our contracts such as roadside spraying, bridge maintenance, our guide rails, looking at bylaws, policies, and permits, as well as the long-range planning for the county. Currently, our road condition is good. It's at 75.2%. The province recommends that as an upper tier municipality, that our roadways stay around the 70 or a bit above the 70 range. So we've been at the high 70s, but we're trying to get back to the low 70s with our budget preparation. So when you look at our typical roadway and how a road will age over the lifespan, you look at the top section, you look at your rejuvenators and your such as Reclamite, it looks like it's $2 a square meter. That acts like a Thompson's water seal for your road. So if someone's saying, well, that road was just redone and now 5 years from now you're putting another product on it, all we're trying to do is maintain that road so it's in a better condition over the lifespan. And as that road, as the road degrades, we look at microsurfacing, resurfacing, rehabilitation, and we really try not to get down into the reconstruction. We want to do as many treatments at a cheaper dollar amount versus the higher cost of reconstruction. This is a slide that shows reconstruction over time versus a do nothing approach, which is construct and let the roadway degrade to a point where it needs to be reconstructed. So around the 60-year life cycle of a roadway, a typical roadway would last 25 to 30 years. You're going to reconstruct that road twice if you do nothing approach. And that's going to have a cost of around $240 per square meter over the life cycle of that roadway. Now, if you do the preservation strategies, such as the rejuvenator, the microsurface, and the rehabilitation, that lifespan at 60 years will only cost $134 per square meter. So again, that's why we try to do more work sooner, in order so we don't have to spend a lot of money at the end of the life cycle. So the 10-year budget that was presented to the county council, they only approved the current year that we're in, 2023. However, staff is looking at the long-range planning, and the average budget for the next 5 years is projected to be $17.9 million, and the overall 10-year average is 19.7. And if you do look at the chart, looking at our reserves are slowly depleting as we move into that 10-year plan. So with the current funding strategy, with the current network being at 75, with a $15 million budget, which was approved in 2022, it'll degrade to a 68.69. But with a 17.8 million budget, which was approved in 2023 by County Council, it will degrade to the 71.22, still keeping us above that 70. Areas of opportunity, again, staff look at long-range planning. This has been in the works since the 1970s. It's the extension of County Road 23 to County Road 7. The EA was completed back around 2015. And the whole point is to divert traffic from local roads onto county roads. The project is currently planned for construction starting in 2031. Another area of opportunity which just started last year, we had our first EA here in town, is looking at a new route west of County Road 41. A transportation master plan was completed in 2014. And this transportation master plan identified that there was significant traffic growth on County Road 41, which is known as Center Street, Germantown, Napanee, and Dundas. So a lot of residents from the west to get up to the north part of the town are using Dundas Street and then up 41. We're actually 22,000 cars a day on Bridge Street and north going up into the north end of town. So by constructing a bypass of New Route West, that will alleviate pressure on Dundas Street, Bridge Street, and County Road 41. So areas of opportunity for funding with roads and bridges is basically looking at getting more capital or ensuring we have capital and increasing our reserves over the next 10 years. And in doing so, that's looking at the annual 2% county budget levy and increasing that to 3%. Okay, so property services. As mentioned before, we have 15 properties, including 422 social housing units. We have properties in all 4 municipalities, as well as social housing units in Prince Edward County. So property services staff, they're responsible for the operation and maintenance of our units, includes day-to-day maintenance and repairs, regular inspections. We do move-in apartments, so if someone leaves out of the social housing unit, we may have to replace floors, doors, cabinetry, repaint, drywall, etc. Not for everyone, but in certain situations we do. We also do the outdoor maintenance, such as garden and lawn maintenance, snow removal, janitorial, cleaning services, and ordering supplies for the units. We also coordinate and oversee contractors, so that's meeting contractors, opening doors, allowing them access into our buildings, and then maintaining and doing contract administration for the project. We provide 24 hours, 7 days a week on-call service for all of our buildings. We do a building condition assessment in all of our buildings every 5 years. And that building condition assessment gives us an estimate of what we need to spend on that building to maintain it at its current condition. So based on the cost of the repairs, we create an extended facility condition index, and that takes the cost of the value of the house or the building now, the replacement value compared to the amount of repairs, and it gives it a rating between 0 and 100. So this is a chart on the summary of the county buildings. It does not include your social housing unit, just the 15 buildings that are owned by the county. And there's 3 in there that need to be identified as a concern. But if you look at the chart in the middle, that's the total renewals, and if we don't do the repairs. Just look at the county courthouse here, which is the top row, it's currently at 0.6%, so which is a really good condition. By not doing anything in 10 years, it'll go to a 45. We do have some repairs scheduled in the budget, estimated at 1.5 million. Even if we complete those repairs, it'll still increase to 26%. But if we do the 3.7 million as per the BCI, that will keep us around the 0.6%. So as mentioned, there's 3 properties to look at. We have the Memorial Building at 47, the Alan McPherson House at 57, which now falls in the poor category, and the Cartwright Building is at 88, which falls within the critical. And just to point out, as I mentioned back on this slide, currently we're at the overall building average is at 7.2%. Even if we complete the 10-year budget as we have a budget now, which don't include all of the dollars that were identified in the BCAs, we're still going to increase to 30% for an overall condition rating. So the first building is the Memorial Building. It was constructed in 1952. As a memorial to all the residents in Leamington, Allington that served in the war. Its replacement value right now is at 6.5 million, with a 10-year projected capital cost of 3 million. There's lots of repairs, security, communications, roof and rooftop units, elevator, walls and doors, parking lot, and utilities. That building is primarily used for services. We do collect some revenue from that, but we have an annual operating of 230,000 with an annual revenue of 307,000, which gives us $77,000 annual net revenue. The Cartwright Building. This was constructed in 1891 and originally housed the family of the jailhouse for the jail at the courthouse campus here. Its current replacement value is 553,000, with a 10-year projected capital cost of 485,000. Repairs include pretty much the entire building. It's in bad condition. The building is unserviced and is only used for cold storage at this point in time. Staff looked at options to renovate that, to turn it into office space, to bring it up to current standards, not just replace the building as is, but to add an elevator and have a proper facility. It would be $1 million or more to renovate that building. In order to give council option as what to do with that building, we're also reaching out to Greater Napanee, the Heritage Committee, to see if that property could be delisted as another option to look at demolishing that building. The Alan McPherson House. So it was acquired by from the Napanee Historical Society in 2014 when they could no longer fund its operation. BCA estimates that the replacement value of this building at just under 1.7 million, with a 10-year capital cost of just under 1 million. The county museum provides outdoor and programming during the summer months. And when you look at similar heritage buildings around the county, they're either owned by private people or residents, or by religious groups, or by the local municipalities themselves. So right now, with us owning the Alan McPherson House, it means that residents and loyalists, Stone Mills, and that in Highland all fund the Napanee Heritage House, but Napanee residents do not fund theirs. Areas of opportunity. We got to consider future renovations to the county memorial building, the future of the Cartwright Building with possible demolition, and the future of the Alan McPherson House. Look at considering transferring ownership to Greater Napanee, or develop a capital contribution agreement with the town. Thank you. I'm introducing Stephen Hall, who's the Director of Community and Development Services.
Hi, everyone. As Chris mentioned, I'm Stephen, and my responsibilities include a lot of things that make our community a better place to live and do business. And I think that's what's really key for what I'm hearing tonight as well today. When you're looking at a community as a holistic approach, it's all these different pieces that allow it to be as good as possible so you can attract new business, attract new residents, bring new visitors into the community as well. So we do a little bit of that through our programs, which are economic development, land use planning, library services, as well as our museum, just backing behind this building. So I'll touch on a little bit of economic development. We do really four main key things, looking to attract investment, attract talent. From an economic development perspective, you heard tonight within our own internal departments, attracting talent, attracting people is the #1 job that an economic development office now needs to focus on. As we're looking at new jobs that are coming in, new investment, but also looking at replacing those individuals who are retiring, or just moving from business to business, shop to shop as well. We do business coaching, help our small businesses to thrive and meet any challenges they have. And then we do quite a bit of work on branding, increasing tourism visits right here into Lennox County. So we had a pretty good year the last year or so with the Umacore announcement, $1.5 billion investment. Latham Pools, they'll be opening any day in Loyalist Township, 100 new jobs created there. County Council committed significant support, $450,000 for the Eorn Cell Gap project. So that's Eastern Ontario Regional Network to get cell coverage right across our communities. We've had lots of traction on our website visits, so we do a lot of digital marketing and ability to track who those people are and what they're visiting. So in 2022, we had 300,000 people actually visit our website. So those are individuals who are looking to again live here, visit here, or invest here as well. And then we have a program that has really been successful for us. It's the LNA Activation Fund, which our Economic Development Coalition, which is a group of community members, helped us to manage and administer. And we divide dollars up amongst our 4 municipalities at $10,000 each that support events, tourism products, cultural initiatives, and beautification projects. So you'll see some of those starting to roll in this spring, summer, and fall as well. So some opportunities that we have on the economic development front. We definitely need an employment land strategy. That's required to prepare for future growth, but also ensure that the land inventory we have right now is shovel ready and ready for an investment. And this is across all municipalities. We need to have investment ready land. Extremely competitive marketplace right now. We see the investments and the significant land transactions have been happening across Ontario, and it is going to be a battle for land. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And tie that to a battle for talent as well. Putting those two things together will help us be successful. So we're also looking at kind of work on developing strategies to attract mixed housing, including affordable housing. That's going to be part of our portfolio in combination with Lynn and the Pellis Group. And then we're going to continue to support broadband expansion and cell gap projects. My last, opportunity is really looking at how we can grow the national LNA brand as well to increase visits and awareness. So the more that we can share from the top of the mountain about Lennox County, again, the more it helps us to drive new people, new dollars into our communities. And Rob Humley, who's on our team, does a great job. These are just some pictures of business owners that are showing off our brand and helping us promote what Lennox County is all about. So let's get into land use planning, so which is part of our department. So ultimately, what we do on land use planning is we want to capture and articulate our vision, the county's vision in planning, and translate it into innovative economic development and housing initiatives. Our land use planning is a little bit different from other planners, and we're developing a bit of an all-inclusive land approach to how we can, again, attract new people, attract new investments, attract new homes, and grow the community in the right way as well. Some of the kind of more technical things that we do, we are the approval authority for local official plans and amendments and plans of subdivision for Addington Highlands and Stone Mills. So a new subdivision going into any one of those areas, we are the approval authority for those. We are working now on establishing policies, goals, and objectives to help us implement new housing initiatives, new housing programs. And then one of the things that's really been really strong for us is that we're able to provide concierge services to help business owners, developers, investors facilitate development. And again, our land use planning is really all about growth and how we do that in a proper way that is best for our residents and our community. So recent accomplishments, we're thrilled that we now have a professional planner on board, so Anna is here to help us manage land use planning requirements and support economic development and doing quite a bit of work on affordable housing. And as we speak, she's at an affordable housing conference today, meeting peers from actually right across the country to help us learn more about how we can improve housing in Livingston County. Some things on the opportunity side, so we will have before us official plan updates for Stone Mills, Greater Napanee, Banks and Highlands. We are the approval authority for those official plans. It's not the province. Those all come back to us, which is great. I mean, we can keep it in-house here in Livingston County and kind of drive our planning as a team. We need to do an update for our county official plan, which is ongoing. We have a growth study that's ongoing and natural heritage study. Also looking at implementing a county climate action plan. So quite a bit on the go. And for those of you following planning initiatives in the province, they're changing every single week. So we're trying to keep on top of that right now to see how that will work for us. And then one of the things that we're looking to do is we want to look to delegate authority to Stone Mills Township. So to give them the ability to approve their own official plan amendments and subdivisions is what we're looking at right now. So housing opportunities, as you heard, through Lynn, this is something that our rec dev team, our land use planning team is really thrilled to be part of. So we're looking at establishing policies, goals, and objectives of how we can bring good housing into LNA, inventory of land available that we can attract investment or build ourselves on, and really want to look at solutions of how we can incentivize the development community and private property owners to help us develop affordable housing in our community. So how we're going to do that, we're going to look at completing a needs assessment study to better understand what the requirements are based on economic and social factors here in LNA. The big part though is that we need to complete financial modeling to determine the equity, the financing, and the operating costs required to build a house based on the needs of our county. And based on that, we'll determine if the county will directly invest in new housing or a partnership with not-for-profits or private sector are feasible or the preferred way to go. But we need to build that business case and understand the financials behind that. And then we're also working now, have been for the past year, on the development approvals project. So our ultimate goal is to modernize application processes, so building applications, planning applications across all 5 municipalities, ensure that they're up to date, they're consistent. And they are, from our standpoint as an economic developer, creates a competitive advantage for us. So if you can bring your business here and get your permits quicker and more transparent, that is a big advantage. And particularly when we're competing against neighbors and right across the country. So ultimately, we are working hard to launch our development approvals workflow tool on public portal by the 3rd quarter of this year. And it's extremely important. The success of this project is really going to be based on the participation of all our lower tier partners. So this is kind of hard to see, but what the development approvals process or project will allow is staff in all of municipalities to have at their fingertips every given second of the day where application status might be, and what's due, what's not due, reporting that can come back to county council. And is also very transparent to those individuals and customers who have submitted their applications as well. So once launched, if you submitted a building application, sorry, you can't see it here, but you'll be able to go to your dashboard. You'll be able to see, okay, my application is sitting now with this department at this municipality, and it's been there for 20 days or 10 days. We built in targets and we'll be building in targets that need to be met as well. So again, there may be 10 days to do one segment of this application, and then 15 days. And as a customer, you will be able to track that as well all staff across municipalities. So we think this is a great way to move forward and ensure that things can be done really efficiently and modern, and also works both ways for creating that team between the staff and the customer. So quickly, in our last 2 groups, library service part of our group. So we operate branches in Amherst, Napanee, Tamworth, back at the Bath and York. Amherst, Napanee are full-time branches. And some of our recent accomplishments, pandemic was kind of tough on the libraries, so we successfully kind of reopened in 2022, and we had over 200,000 transactions at our branches in 2022. So that's people that check out books or telescopes or whatever else we may have within our libraries. And we had 14,000 people participate in all our programs that our staff put together every single day of the year. Probably heard that we've done quite a bit of work on looking at the potential of building 2 new future libraries in Lenape County, one at Maine and one in Amherst. We've done architectural work. We've done analysis of potential locations at both, again, Amherst and Napanee. We need to do a little bit more work on budgeting and financial forecasting, as well as firming up locations and putting a strong business plan in front of county council as well to move that forward. And I should note library staff were wonderful during the pandemic. They actually worked at the Parrott Center and helped all evangelist staff go through all the different challenges they had. So kudos to our staff for doing that. So again, opportunities to touch upon building our business plan for future libraries, looking at total costs, capital plans, and locations of our libraries. We're also going to be presenting that sometime, we hope, this year to county council for some further recommendations or guidance with respect to that. And then lastly, we have our museum, which is right out back, plus our McPherson House. And they do a wonderful job really telling the story of our community, but also really creating an educational piece and educational programs. So they've gone through rebranding over the last year. I've done quite a bit of renovations. The pandemic allowed us to do that as the doors were closed. We created 2 new galleries. And we, with the lifting of the pandemic restrictions, last year we had a relaunch and had 7,000 people through the building. And they've done quite a bit of new technology to look at digitizing the collection. And then from an opportunity side of things, we do have some accessibility challenges with the lower courtyards. We need to find a solution for that. And we're moving further on strategic planning to look at a 10-year plan as well. So that's a little bit about my department, and happy to pass it along to Mark Day, who's going to talk a bit about financial services.
Good evening, everyone, and again, thanks for coming and taking all this information in. I just want to go over some of what we do for the financial services. Actually, our mandate is we really support our other departments, process payroll and reporting, obviously processing accounts payables and receivables. We are in charge of maintaining insurance, accounting for capital assets, financial planning and budgeting, and also financial reporting and monitoring. That being said, you got a great overview of what the departments do. After this section, I will be talking about commercial offenses, but just so you know, for all the departments, our budget 2023 is $94.5 million. You can see the breakdown there. Basically, about 1/3 is health services, which includes mainly JNPC, ambulance services, and we also do contribute 21% to the Kingston Frontenac Health Board. So we do contribute to that with along with Kingston and Frontenac County. Infrastructure services is about 25%, and you can see community development services, administration services make up about 80%. So in total, to do our operations in 2023, we're going to $94.5 million. So that being said, as mentioned earlier too, that we really do a lot of mandated services for the province. You can see our huge portion of grants and subsidies from the province represents 47% of our budget of $44.5 million. County taxes represent 35.9%, which is roughly about $33.9 million for 2023. So you can see if there's any changes in the provincial government or funding margin, or the rate swing, we have to pick that up from property taxes. So we really are tied to the province in how we do fund our services and what kind of effect it can have on our revenue streams. So some of our challenges obviously is to the affordability and sustainability to be able to provide the services that we are required for the property taxes. We are limited to the streams that we can do. The rising cost of insurance has greatly increased for all municipalities, not just us. with a 23% increase in our last renewal, and the year before that was a 19% increase. So it's a huge factor that we do have coming in. We're like any other household, we're challenged by the cost of inflationary pressures and supply chains, and that increases all of our operations on there. And then it's our ability to fund that investment in infrastructure assets. As mentioned, we do need to look at our funding policy for infrastructure as costs do increase. And we also need to look at the problems for funding models on that, because anything else, we have to bear those increase on the property taxes. Basically, this is a quick snapshot of where we are in asset management plan that was developed in 2022. Our replacement value is $969 million. You can see the breakdown there on the different sections of that. The expenditure annual requirement based on that asset management plan was 36.4 million. So we have a funding gap to maintain that of about 17 million. And we are working at the living net, and we are maintaining the main things to maintain our service level of our assets for that. But it is a challenge, and it will be a challenge not just for us, but for all municipalities across the province. Some of the areas of opportunity, obviously, as I mentioned before, the cost of insurance, just for a lot of the province, that is ongoing, but especially in regards to joint and several liability, which is kind of driving the cost. Increase sales, the property values, and increase those costs. So there is a lot of room there for improvement, but we are limited. There's only a few suppliers that do service insurance for municipalities, so it's a very limited scope that we can do. Also, like I mentioned before, our ability to fund capital. For the last 20 years, County Council has endorsed increasing the capital levy for the 5 year 2%. This year that generated 633,000 additional revenue to go into the capital levy. So this reliance on this, it doesn't be adjusted because the differential does come from reserves for 5 year surpluses or underspend. So if we start draining down our reserves, it does reduce our financial stability that we need to move forward and consider some other ways to maintain or get some funding. So there is some risk involved there, but I think during the strategic planning, we'll look at options and what we can do to move forward and hopefully obviously maintain our assets in the great condition that they are in. And that is the service kind of level that the county council will have to look at and consider as what they want to do for based on our ability to pay. So with that, I'm going to go into the other area that I'm responsible for, professional offenses and the administration and of that. So just a bit of the history. It was downloaded to the county in 1998 as part of the Streamlined Administration of Professional Offenses Act in 1997. All outstanding fines were transferred to the county to collect and manage approximately 1.9 million at that time. The province provided a computer hardware and a dedicated connection to the provincial database called ICON. County is responsible for the administration, which includes processing Part 1, Part 3 tickets, collection and enforcement, and the prosecution. This just gives you an example of the type of what Part 1 tickets are and the Part 3 summons. You can see on there, so on Part 1 is speeding, bylaws, record of the vehicle, and so the other Part 3 are more serious offense, which is careless driving, the speeding over 50 kilometers an hour. Some of the ministry charges from administrative environment, there's some other administrative labor. Those type of charges are Part 3 summons. Tickets annually, we basically have no control of the authorities as either OPP or local municipalities for just their current bylaws. These are the number of tickets annually. You can see it's decreased greatly. Starting from 2019, the pandemic, and we're still seeing a sign of the decrease. The revenue, corresponding revenue has come down in relation to that. And you can see that it's gone from a peak of a little over 2.5 million in 2016 down to a little under 1.5 million in 2022. The POA section is actually our revenue is always historically, they will have larger than our expenses, and it contributes to the reduce the county levy. So we've seen that in our budget process due to the number of tickets going down, actually being decreased towards the county budget and helping to reduce our levy for that. Some of the challenges with POA is obviously that icon that I mentioned, it's antiquated and limited. It's there's a lot of issues with that. It's 20 years old. The number of tickets issued in our region has significantly reduced. The number of reduction was the realignment of the OPP traffic operations was historically based in LA County. It's now further west, and we support all of the attachments, but that has had a major impact on the number of reduction of tickets in this area. Our ability to report costs from operating community revenue is diminishing, and there is a backlog due to the that is being allocated to PO courts. That's not only with our courts, all courts. Trying to solve the backlog of that, and the elimination of license plate renewals at that time when there was tickets outstanding, anything like sticker renewed, we could that was on there. I think we had to pay your outstanding ticket or before you get extended the sticker renewed, and I can do that all I had is for sticker. Some of the areas of opportunity is obviously an upgrade of the icon system, investing in new technology, which I have to say that county has done now. We have an online portal that we're working with the OPP and the submitting of evidence, so that will streamline the process and help be more efficient and hopefully create some savings in that regard. And then maybe looking at some collection tools such as you will have the ability to apply some of these tickets on the property taxes in order to get them paid. And there's an option also regulate cameras and automatic speed enforcement cameras within the county to help increase funding revenue and increase safety enforcement. And obviously to lastly, it's the Attorney General to allow prosecutor and defendant to resolve the case in writing without requiring a court appearance before justice of the peace. And be a lot more efficient, save work time and costs and equity. That's it.
As you can see, we have incredible professional staff that really care about this community. They care about your experience as residents. They care about your well-being. I'm very proud of them. We couldn't be prouder. So I'm going to open up the floor for questions, and I'm going to start here in Napanee. If anyone wants to make a statement or a question to county council, I'll ask for one, and then I'll go to the each of the other four, and then circle back around until there's no more individuals that want to ask questions or make comments. So is there anybody here in the room in Napanee who has a question, wants to make a comment? To share, please stand up, and you might want to come to the podium so that people can hear you best.
Yeah. How much of a comment, just a question to Mark. What do you do in the insurance game? Because I've done some research myself, and the average was 400 million a year for year after year after year, decades for the whole insurance business in claims going all over Canada. Went to 2.1 average 2 years ago. It just hit pretty good one this past year. So it's just skyrocketing, and I don't know what you folks can do. So maybe you don't have an answer either, but they're going to pressure you guys. That is the insurance, but they're coming out of the US, they're paying out in big disasters. And that's going to put pressure on you to try and get more development done to raise your revenues coming in. Except they're going to be telling you guys pretty soon what's a safe place to put a house and what isn't. They will be dictating because they'll put guidelines where they weren't sure. It's already happening in Quebec on the Ottawa River. So
It's
where are you going to go?
Can you share the dollar amounts so people can share like rough?
Yeah. So roughly right now, we're paying over 700,000 annual for insurance. I have to say that from 3% from after and 19% from the year before. And exactly what you say, the property price is a high driver, and with the events going across worldwide, they're hitting huge losses. Joint and several liability means that if there's any legal action, and whatever, we can go after whoever the pockets and we're looking at the other end of this pockets, you know, with the tax base. So we're always getting called in class action suits or getting drawn into that. So it is the Illinois Annual Association of Municipal Area have trying to do there's some papers on there, it has to be continued because it is for, we have to look at being self-insured, which is very risky as well. To start building up reserves in order to handle our own section. But there is risk analysis, I know the departments go through to reduce the risk where they can. Insurance companies can provide, you know, tools to look at to see what can you do to reduce your risk of claims, but you're right, it's a huge concern, and it's unsustainable with these increases we've had in insurance companies from the last two years during those with playing council what's going on in the industry. So
Thank you.
If I could just tag on to that with joint and several liability. So what that means, if we're called into a lawsuit with somebody else, if that person can't pay, if a judge finds that we have even 1% liability, we could have 100% of costs that have to pay up. I mean, they do that so that the victim or the person that's harmed is guaranteed some kind of payment, but what that means for you as a taxpayer is a tremendous amount of risk, and that's partly the reason why our insurance is so high. So AMO, municipalities, we've all been lobbying, asking the province for over 20 years now. Like it's been a long haul asking the province to do something with joint and several liability. The Ford government did commit to doing something in the previous election, but we still haven't seen action on that yet. So what you can do as voters is to maybe express your concern about that. It does impact your. You can see if we're spending over $700,000 in insurance every year, joint and several liability is impacting your property tax rate. It is. Okay, I'm gonna go to Loyalist Township. Is there anyone in Loyalist Township that has a question or a statement that they'd like? Anything that they'd like answered?
No questions from our audience, thank you.
Okay, thank you. How about Stone Mills? Is there anyone in Stone Mills that has a question?
No questions from the audience here in Stone Mills.
Okay, thank you very much. How about Addington Highlands?
No, nothing from Addington Highlands, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm back to Napanee. Is there anybody here that has a question, comment, a thought they'd like to share? Sure.
Thanks, Brenda. First of all, wow, the challenges you guys face, I guess I didn't really understand all of us, so thank you very much for that. Getting back to some of the opportunity that I listened up there, and one of the things I think that's sort of a thread that runs between several of the opportunities is in terms of cycling infrastructure. And I'm wondering, I didn't really see it out there, but I think it's an opportunity that kind of ties into what Stephen was saying and Chris was saying, and some of what the financial people were saying, in that cycling infrastructure to me is also social infrastructure. And with that comes things like attracting people to healthy communities. It helps development of course, the youth culture and so on. And again, I didn't see that necessarily budgeted, and I'm sure it's tied into a lot of different things, and it's certainly not a criticism of any sort. I look at it more as an opportunity that going forward, strong towns, healthy communities, social services, all of that seem to come together, and cycling is something that I'm seeing happening all across North America, and there's a huge uptick. And I'm just thinking if that isn't possibly somewhere more prevalent in one of our documents.
I'm gonna ask Chris to come up and talk about transportation master plan, because we got you covered.
Right. Excuse me.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great point. Currently, right now, our capital projects in our hot mix, we are putting a minimum of 1.2 meter wide paved shoulder, up to a 1.5 meter paved shoulder. That is not by any means a cycling lane, but it does add an extra level of safety for those who want to travel using the county roads. We do a transportation master plan, as Brenda was saying, every 10 years. It's due in 2024. So it will be presented in the 2024 budget to county council. We've already been in discussions with the lower tier municipalities at the CAO level to see, because we're actually at that level. Active transportation is huge, and as you said, it's social and economic. There's a lot of connectivity in the economic development. If we can have connecting links throughout our municipalities, and not just here in Napanee or not just in Loyalist, but connecting Loyalist, Napanee, Stone Mills, Highlands, and even further to the east and west, Deserano, Hastings, and South Frontenac. That brings a lot of visitors as well as economic development to those communities. And we are actually going to include that in the 2024 transportation master plan, in addition to just looking at the level of operations of the roads and bridges and intersections. We're going to include active transportation.
You're still there. What kind of public transportation is there in the county? Because there's a lot of older people and there's going to be a need for public transportation, even for younger people, and that would save costs on the road.
I'm gonna ask Stephen to come up and talk about our transportation funding that we shared with 2 of the lower tiers.
Can I just? So looking at transit is also part of the transportation master plan in 2024 as well, looking at transit opportunities.
So yeah, good question. We did receive money from the province of Ontario. I was actually 3 years ago, it was a partnership with LNAS West Services. But as operations changed there, dollars actually came back to us. We did a preliminary plan of looking at how we would do linkages between predominantly, well, all our municipalities. So we have that in place. But with the dollars we have right now, we've actually asked for proposals from the town of Greater Napanee as well as the Loyalist Township. And we will be getting those in front of the council very shortly. We'll be looking at some pilot projects to create those linkages, certainly in the southern part of Livingston County. Then we can use that data and try to understand kind of what the use is, where they're traveling to, and kind of tie that to some work that Chris is going to be doing in 2024 as well. Thanks. So stay tuned, you'll hopefully see something soon on the roads. Yeah.
Okay, so is there any other comments, questions?
Yes, I have a question for Chris Baker. I talked to Stephen Paul about this before. We're one of the few areas that does not have an emergency detour route around the town. The emergency detour route runs right down the main street. The traffic backs up to Kingston when we have a problem. And sometimes when the trucks turn from Dundas Street up the center, they take out a light standard and things like that happen. So it's very simple given the emergency detour route. That would be to extend Trinity Road down to Newburgh Road. And it would open up a great deal of industrial land. It would probably attract funding from the province and certainly from the town, because it would be opening up some of their property development. Is that, do you expect to be part of your master plan for 2024?
That means
So EDR routes will be reviewed at the transportation master plan in 2024. That said, we have recently modified the EDR route through town. So it comes off of County Road 1 West and then goes down to Industrial Boulevard and County Road 1. The attempt there is to keep the large trucks off of the downtown core, if you will, and off of the local roads. We have seen an improvement with that. It's still not perfect. I checked for funding at the province level for updating and creating an EDR route. Looking at going north of the town and north of the existing 401. That is not out there. We meet with the province at the cost level with representative. Our problem is shared by all municipalities with the 401 or Clay Highway 7 traveling through the communities. But it will be looked at. If you don't miss for you less, I'm probably gonna prove it now. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask one more time. Anybody else? Please.
First of all, the website and the information that's been created for the way it looks to live here is first rate, absolutely first rate. I live on the Napanee River and have for 50 years. One of the things that we're concerned about, and we have been talking to Stone Mills, but we're also realizing that really it's got to be a county concern about our two rivers because they run through 3 and 4 municipalities. Natural heritage system study that was done is absolutely top drawer, North-South Consulting. And I know you're familiar with it in detail. So questions for the future, how does it get implemented so that the development you're looking for isn't at the cost of where the kids can swim? That's simple. The top reaches of both rivers are still absolutely unbelievable. We can stop literally in our village and go, oh my God, I didn't even know this was here. And we're 10 minutes from the 401. It's pretty special, but it's pretty delicate. So how is that natural heritage going to get tied into your strategic plan in the future? Any thoughts on that from any of you? Thank you.
Well, yeah, I live on the Napanee River as well, and yeah, I agree completely with you, and I think every year goes by, I actually see more people paddling and using it, which is amazing, so that's good, me included. I mean, the reason for the National Heritage Studies is, I guess what I should say, it's going to be tied into our efficient plan update as well. So all those things are going to be combined, and you'll see some drafts that'll come forward probably in the next 2 to 3 months with regards to that, but we do need to integrate all the different planning based on the tools that we're building right now. So one of those is natural heritage, the other is the growth study, understanding where our population is going to be and how we can work towards that and how we can integrate those policies in our official plans. So I mean, the ultimate goal is we're just not doing this to put it on the shelf. We need to put it into action. It is really what needs to happen. And that would be our commitment so it doesn't go forward for sure. So yeah, I mean, I can't say right now exactly what that needs it to be, but certainly what people like yourselves have given some great comments on our national heritage study as of today to help us as well as we go forward.
It's the old story, it's a little like Jaws, all it takes is one no swimming sign, you know, all of our work just goes down the drain.
Yeah, no, exactly, and I know you mentioned me once before about paddling the river and seeing where people take down trees and looking at shore erosion, and so those are really important parts of what the fabric of our communities needs to be for the next hundreds of years, so yeah.
And people breaking the law by doing things when they don't really have the approval and nothing's done to stop them or make them go back and undo what they've done at whatever cost it is.
Yeah, and I think we need also have an understanding too with the CAs and then what's happening with them and where those gaps are going to be too. So there's a lot to be.
The damage done to them is we're gonna pay for that for a decade. And evaluations.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so one of the thoughts I'd like to leave you with, I think the purpose that we did this for you was so that you could have a good understanding of the kinds of services we provide. So that you might want to reach out to your elected officials that are going to be doing strategic plan come May 10th and let them know what's important to you, what's meaningful. If you've heard some big ticket items here tonight, like new ambulance space, affordable housing, library, capital roads projects, those are big numbers. I mean, you can't take them all at once. So you might have thoughts on what things you think might be priorities first, like do this first, and then maybe that. Whatever those thoughts are, please share them with your elected officials. They're in all of these rooms, and we'd love to hear from you. That was the whole purpose. And this presentation will be on our website. So if any of your friends couldn't attend, or you go back and say, hey, you should have been there to listen to this. Wow, $11 a day to feed a person 3 meals a day. With choices, I don't know your staff do it. Like there's some surprising things there. You might want to encourage your friends to watch the video. And we're going to provide on our website, the email address. So that if you go home and you think about it and you want to email in, all of your comments or questions or emails will be synthesized down for council. Like we'll have a list for council with it all together so that they can review that prior to the strategic planning day. So just please know that we appreciate everyone's attendance. We appreciate your input. I specifically like to thank the folks that are here in the room. It's much easier to present to live human beings than it just to present to a screen, and it's greatly appreciated. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And want to thank everybody. And thank you again for Addington Highlands, Loyalist and Stone Mills. Thank you so much for doing this for us tonight. We really appreciate it.